caught his attention there for the moment. A bit more on mission strategy, and what I'll do first is just show you this little sequence. Can you read that writing from the back? I hope you can. This works quite happily if I don't say anything, but I'll just let it scroll down. Just to say, I prepared this sequence for some overworked clergy at a conference once, suggesting how they might slim down the size of their congregations to a manageable size. It seemed quite popular, so I'll let you into the little trade secrets. Here are some hints for getting rid of congregations, so the congregation slims down to a small number that the vicar can manage without overworking. Okay, and see what you think of this little lot. Would you like to use butterfly song? No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't. No. Some of these are quite controversial. You're limited to button home at the end, or tell me I'm wrong. That's bound to keep everyone happy, isn't it? Yeah. That's very widespread, that one is. It works a treat. I mean, I normally meet God in the cracks in the service, in the silence. I don't know about you, but that's the best tactic, because that can get rid of them before the service begins. That's much more effective than dealing with it. He didn't create it. They'll get discouraged in the end. Here they are. Just to say, the church growth sort of textbooks, the aforementioned Hope for the Church, I'm down on copies, there's just one copy there, I think, and then sequel a few years later is The Road to Growth, and the little booklet Going for Growth that fits with it, you see they've got a similar cover. That extracts a lot of the main findings and is suitable for use in small groups or PCCs, but it doesn't sort of go through the evidence on which the findings are based. So you have to trust me for that, but it's always best if someone's glanced through the book or has got it to check on the evidence base. So that's those two. The green set, the DVD and a book and a booklet, are the Everybody Welcome course. That's the subject of the seminar workshop this afternoon. This book here is about church growth, but it's not in this country. It's a biography I wrote of a church leader in Nepal and how the church has grown there. This is the only book that's not really about church growth at all. I just put a few on. It's called Matthew. Eldest son was killed in an accident when he was 10, many years ago now, and I wrote this really as in story form, but it's about how Christians cope with bereavement and sorrow. So they're on the bookstall, and I'll leave them there till tomorrow lunchtime. Other ways of putting people off, you can use the notice board. Okay. Here is Sacred Mysteries Sleepy Hollow, notice board, Sunday services. May have seen doors like that. Sorry, are you in trouble? I'm in your way, aren't I? Just realised. I'm very sorry. Yeah. Welcome to St. Everywhere, otherwise known as St. Isosceles on all angles. First Sunday of the month, family service with sandpit. Second Sunday, solemn high mass. Third Sunday, old hymn songs of praise. Fourth Sunday, extra loud Eucharist with rock-bound terminal explosion. Fifth Sunday, baptisms by the riverbank, whatever the weather. And St. Everywhere's slogan is "Come every week." We all know what happened at St. Everywhere's. There'd be 4 congregations, each coming once a month, with a little bit of overlap. St. Everywhere. St. Waldide. Yeah, just see St. Waldide. Come to St. Waldide's for reverence and tradition. 8 o'clock early mass, 10:30 morning mass, 6:30 evening mass. We always use the proper prayer book. So their issue, now I could have poked fun at the happy clappies. It doesn't matter who you do it with. I'm very sorry, I've treading everyone's toes here. It could have said 8 o'clock charismatic rave up, 10:30 charismatic rave up, 6:30 evening charismatic rave up. It doesn't matter. The point is that this church has the capacity to put on 3 services, and what it does is put on 1 service 3 times for the same group of people. What a waste. What variety can you try? I did this slide originally for the Diocese of Monmouth, and was in a hall of 400 people in a major conference. And I put this slide up, and 399 people just fell about laughing. Way over the top when I put this on, and there was a chap on the front row who looked at me daggers. I couldn't work out what was going on until later someone pointed out to me that the cathedral of the diocese is called St. Woolow's. That is exactly its service pattern, and the chap on the front row was the dean. Oh dear. Yeah, St. Waldide's. And then welcome to the Upper Creek group of parishes. And services are as follows. St. Without's 9:30am alternate Sundays. St. Pavil's 11am family service, first and third Sunday, otherwise Eucharist. Little Snoring 8am Holy Communion first Sunday, 6:30 second and fourth. Great Creek 9am summertime, 11am wintertime. See church notice board for local variations. Joint services 5th Sundays and other feast days, location varies. And the Upper Creek group of parishes slogan is, "Come and join us, if you can find us." It's normally the case that to build a worshipping community, it's normally best that it meets in the same place at the same time every week in roughly the same culture. Welcome to All Saints. Our services every week are 9:30 Holy Eucharist with choir, 11 family services groups with children, 4 o'clock service in Urdu, and 7 o'clock contemporary praise. Now, actually I quite like that one. There are a few issues with it. It's very similar to a church we used to worship in the West Midlands. 4 distinct services clearly indicated, you know roughly what you're going to come to, and 4 different sorts of people are likely to be attracted to those 4 different events. I do have 1 or 2 issues. For instance, if you're advertising a service that takes place in Urdu, you might be best to advertise it in Urdu. Yeah? Who, apart from the in crowd, know what that funny E word means at the top there at 9:30? Eucharist. So that's probably not a good word to have on a notice board. But anyway, that's you can see a lot of strengths in that one. I run a course out at St John's, Nottingham, called the Go Growth Course, and I have a little questionnaire. And there's a number of churches church leaders have been on the course, and they've told me which of their services at different times are growing and shrinking. And this is between 2010 and 2012, and I've forgotten there's 60 or 70 Anglican churches, 70, 80 Anglican churches involved in this little survey. The blue bar is the number of churches that tell me they are growing in numbers at that particular service, early communion, main Sunday morning, etc. The red bar is shrinking. What happened to the... there it is. So you can see how it works. How interesting that we got about 25 or 26 churches saying the main Sunday morning service is growing, and only 10 saying it's shrinking. The ones, the times where there are more shrinkers than growers, and I found this in every group that I've tried this with, are the early communions and the Sunday evenings. In fact, a huge proportion of the loss of Church of England attendance over the last 30 years has been evening services. Once upon a time, more people came in an evening than a morning, and now there's hardly, very few evening services left. And those that are the majority are shrinking rather than growing. The main growth points are Sunday mornings, as you can see, and weekday services, 16 growing and 3 shrinking. And the new time, Sunday tea time, where there were 4 services, they're not represented, all of which were growing. The Sunday evenings, the ones that tend to be growing on a Sunday evening tend to be the more contemporary style, and the more traditional, prayer book Sunday evening services, the ones that are declining. That's to do with really the natural Sunday evening church-going constituency is usually these days young adults without children, teenagers, and a certain rather narrow age group of people whose children have grown up, but we're not too old to be afraid to go out after dark. See what I mean? I'm just about in that age category at the moment, although I'm just beginning to move over to being a bit nervous of the dark, so that's where the growing ones are. There's an interesting feature about the main Sunday morning time is that it's clearly good for adult church going, not so good for children, and most of the growth in numbers of children is Sunday tea times and weekdays. It's the messy church phenomena, etc. So just a bit of interest there about service times and their importance, and you might like to apply that to your own situation. Now, for the rest of this session, I want to talk about balanced mission strategy, and just introduce you to 2 ideas: of intuitive, subjective, and another sort, which you'll see in a minute, strategic objective. And just think about them for a minute. Some of us are more naturally one sort of person, others of us are more naturally the other sort. And that comes out in the way we do our strategy and mission. An intuitive person is reactive and responds to human need. We see it, we do something about it. What's God up to today? Let's go there. The intuitive and subjective person sees existing partners and resources, looks around, intuits what's going on and who the partners might be. Does planning from week to week, maybe from day to day, maybe from hour to hour, depending on how extreme you are on this scale, and is likely to see the small details fairly easily. Perhaps the most extreme intuitive vicar I ever knew was Jim Hamilton, who was my wife's vicar as she grew up, and he conducted our wedding. He's still alive, he's well in his 90s now, is Jim. But he was right at this end, and he was not the most organised. Just to illustrate, he'd been invited to preach at the Vicar of Southport at the time. He'd been invited to preach in Warrington, I think, Sunday morning. Not a very good map reader or car driver, and he started driving around Warrington as 10:30 approached, and went. And eventually he said, Lord, lead me to St Bartholomew's, please. It's 10:45, I've got to get there. And he turned the corner, and there was St Bartholomew's. Thank you, Lord, says Jim. Goes into the vestry, puts his robes on, appears into the choir stall just as the vicar's announcing the hymn before the sermon. Oh, he made it. Sits in the curate's stall, last verse, into the pulpit, preaches his sermon. He was a good preacher, great. On the way out, solemnly processing down the centre aisle, the vicar turns to him and said, "Brilliant sermon, but who the hell are you?" That was Jim. Great. So, intuitive, subjective. You get the idea. Everybody loved Jim. Quite rightly. The danger is we get lost in the pressing immediate details. And that's what Jim gave himself to in a wonderful personal ministry over 40 years or more. Every day immersed in the pressing immediate details. The other sort of person, strategic objective approach. This is where we're proactive. We change the circumstances rather than living in them. We see beyond today, working to future goals. And it's about discovering God's vision for the future. This is the ultimate railway train church. And we need to recruit, we need to train, we need to develop people. Looking at the strategy of where we're going, planning ahead, seeing the big picture. Some of us are more naturally that, and some of us are more naturally this. I wonder where you are. The danger of the strategy, of course, is that projects and plans become more important than people. So people become the pawns we use to get to where we want to get to. I'm really naturally on this. I'm a strategic objective person. I'm quite well over on that end of the spectrum personally, naturally. So I have to learn the intuitive and all the rest of it. Because it doesn't come so naturally to me. The majority of people are more naturally intuitive and aren't very strategic. Wonder where you are and where your church community is. What sort of people are you? And of course, we need to balance the two when we're looking at the life of the church. Another way of describing that balance, and just hold that intuitive and subjective and objective and strategic thing in one hand, and look at these other ways of balancing our mission strategy on the other. We all need 4 more P's. I'm on a roll with P's today, and a balanced mission strategy will involve all these 4 P's. And the first one is prayer. And what I want to do is spend just a moment or two on this. You've talked about this as a mission strategy. I don't emphasise prayer in this regard because you have to, because it's the right holy vicary thing to do, and it sounds pious. I don't emphasise prayer for those reasons, but simply because it works. Prayer changes things. Prayer works. Did I mention when I came to preach the story of Sea Salter, that's where you got it from, was it? Where they started praying for new people. Yeah. And all sorts of events and stories through my ministry have made me realise that it works. This is actually the thing I'm worst at, of course, is prayer. And I keep having to tell myself, it works, so you better do it. I went to be curate many years ago at a large church that seemed to me unnaturally large. Why is it so big? It's just a suburb, you have 1,000 people on a Sunday, it's a bit large. The vicar's good, doesn't quite explain it all. And when I'd been there 2 or 3 months, I discovered that there was a lady in the area who was bedridden, and who the vicar visited every week or 2. And he had an ulterior motive, because he would tell her everything that was going on, and she would spend the next week praying about it all. And I suddenly thought, I think I might have uncovered the vicar's little secret of how the church would grow so well, because he's got somebody praying for it all the time, who he just goes and reports to every so often. And nobody else knows about her really, because she's housebound and elderly. But I wonder what sort of key she is. You can never prove anything, but I just got the hunch really that she was behind a lot of it. Prayer. The congregation must pray, the leadership team must pray, the leader must pray. A mission strategy is rooted in prayer, pure and simple. Presence. This is probably what, as Anglicans, we're normally best at being present in our communities, being known. There are churches which the outside world hardly notices exist, but they're very few and far between in the Church of England. So a present church makes itself known and engaged in the local community and people's lives. And just like you to think about this for a moment. There's a question. How many people is your church in touch with during a typical year? And I've just put some possible ways in which you're in touch with them. Just run in your mind's eye, run through that list and clock off some approximate numbers if you can. How many people come at Christmas? How many people in your community in a year will come to a baptism or a wedding or a funeral in your church? What about the people who use this building here during the week? Don't know who does, but I expect there are people. Or the annual events, or whatever it is, or the personal contacts of the vicar or church members. How many people is your church in touch with during a typical year? How wide is your presence felt in the community. Let's have a think about that. Okay, I'm asking Nick to go around with a roving microphone just to see if we've got any responses to that. Anyone, adding up or lost count or saying actually we don't know anybody in our church. Just one or two responses from that. Otherwise we'll pick on somebody. Yeah, thank you. Good. How many people are you in touch with? What do you think?
Very variable with the more the weddings.
Yes.
So I would guess 1,000.
1,000. In an average year, a good 1,000 people, right? You're in real touch with. Another guess? You've got to ask Ian, because Ian will know.
How much impossible it is, you can think individually.
Yes.
And the church, it well over 1,000.
Well over 1,000. Yep. Yep. Yes, as a church. Yep. Okay.
I think involvement in schools is
schools.
A lot of children.
You go to the schools.
I go to school, every school about once a fortnight. So
how many children is that in total?
It's about, in both parishes, I'll be about 600.
600 children. He's in touch with regularly, all the time. Just like that, 600. Yeah. Any other points there? You landed him in it. So what's your view? Well, we'll pick on you.
Every baptism we mainly fell off the church with people just coming to that baptism.
Yes.
And that's at the moment that's going to be most months. We 1 month.
Yes.
Every wedding you must feel the church. Sometimes there are funerals where the entire community seems to turn out and they're heaving at the wall.
Yes.
So I think it's I can't keep count, but it must be huge now.
Yes. Yes.
The church bonfire. With this absolutely packed with people, must be at least 200-300 then, I don't know.
Bonfire is outside,
Thank you for that clarification. Yes. What that story may amount to is that you're in touch with almost everybody in the local community. And that's any sort of, you come up with big numbers and think, oh, it's a lot of people. Anyone think, there's not that many? Anyone want to contradict that? No. Right, okay. Presents. I think we are brilliant at presents. Okay. Just another question. Our little conversation was relevant to this. How often do you get newcomers or visitors into your normal church services? Not necessarily Christmas or the bonfire or whatever it is, but what would you say to that question? How often do people turn up who you don't really know or aren't regular church members? Let's take a show of hands of this. In your church, if you think this basically never happens, can you put a hand up? It never happens. Okay. Occasionally, this is maybe 2 or 3 times a year or something. So there's quite a few votes for that, a dozen or so votes for occasionally. Maybe as much as monthly, once a month is somebody. Yeah. Okay, that's quite a few. More than once a month, 2 or 3 times a month, getting on towards not necessarily weekly, but more often than that. Yeah, okay, a few. Yeah. Every week, does everyone think that? We've run out of votes now. So it's somewhere between once a week and occasionally. You're saying somewhere, every 3 weeks or something, every 2 weeks, there's somebody new turns up. what proportion of those people become regular members? Don't really know. I mean, it's impossible to say. But in most churches, it's a small proportion. It's maybe 10% is the average. So there's an interesting question there as we move from presence to the other things. But we have a presence, and through that presence, some people will just turn up, even at a church service, let alone an invitation event or a barn dance or whatever you have here. The third P is proclamation. This is where the Church of England normally gets a bit weaker and a bit more diffident, of taking presence to the next stage of naming the name of Jesus in evangelistic activities and church services. That's what we mean by proclamation. So, for instance, it's the carol service. Is the carol service a place where we can, while giving folk a really good carol service, also proclaim the gospel of the Incarnation? Even mentioned there. Just to say specifically on that, Christmas is these days easily the biggest mission opportunity of the church's year. Please do not take my caricature of the roundabout church to suggest we do away with Christmas. Okay? No. If you can, make Christmas last from November to February. The nativity service, the panto, the carol service, the crypts, all those sorts of things. In general, the midnight communion congregations are diminishing, and the ones that are growing are anything to do with families and children. It's the crypt services, the Christingles, the 4 o'clock Christmas Eve crypt service is the biggest growth area at the moment, I think. But also carol services in the standard sort of way. And Christmas is probably the one time of year where leaflet dropping and that sort of invitation actually works. So it's good to blanket publicity for Christmas events. The schools start Christmas at the beginning of December. You can do Christmas events at least for 6 weeks or so these days. There's a problem with liturgical purity, but as a mission opportunity, it's the best occasion we have. And so Christmas needs to include giving people a chance to respond to messages and to come again, and a follow-up offer. So you might, for instance, start the nurture course at the beginning of January. And invite people over Christmas to it. So, proclamation. What times of year and opportunities do we have where we are? Christmas is the biggest sort of universal one. And finally, persuasion. We've just been putting stuff up about Paul. That's classically how he would work. He'd talk to a large group. Some people want to find out more, so he'd then concentrate on the smaller group. This is one-to-one stuff, it's small groups, accompanying people on the faith journey. This is the Alpha course, the Start course, or whatever you're using. The conversation sort of event, the persuasion area. So there we have a balanced mission strategy will involve prayer, presence, proclamation and persuasion. And there are elements of all those in our church's life and programme. Interesting question. Suppose you have 12 eggs in the mission basket. Okay? Now, just by coincidence, we have a bowl of 12 eggs. What's more, they're not hard-boiled, they're very breakable. But here's our bowl of 12 eggs. Question: in your church, how many eggs are currently in each of those 4p baskets? Now, you might be sitting there thinking, well, actually, we've only got 3 eggs in our church and they're all in one or the other. But this little party game assumes that you really do have 12 eggs. It's a relative thing between those 4 different P's. So, if you were to divide your eggs up, in thinking of how you work as a church at the moment, how many of those 12 will be in each of the 4 P's? You follow the exercise? Okay, yeah? You're just trying to work out where your balance or imbalance is. I'll give you a few seconds on that, and then happy volunteers can come and actually physically move eggs around into different baskets, and we'll see what the results are. Just think about it for a moment. presence, 4 in presence, 5 in presence, 6 in presence, and where's the 12th egg going? Right, in persuasion. So you've got 3 in prayer, 6 in presence, 1 in proclamation, 2 in persuasion. Is there anything you'd like to tell the people about that?
Well, I think at our church, we're quite good at like events around the area, and our prayer room, we have quite a good prayer time, but I think we should do like maybe an extended bit, maybe the end of the church times. And persuasion, well, we don't have loads of new people coming every week or every month, or not really. And proclamation, well, we're not really good at getting people into the church.
To be proclaimed at?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Thank you. Thanks. Holmbridge. That was Holmbridge. So well, let's go on to the different church next to see what you can come up with. That was Holmbridge. 3, 6, 1, 2. Ah, right, okay. Yes. So, you go first, yes. Just tell us which church you are. Which church are you from? Newmill. You're not related to the vicar at all. Right? Oh, you've got some numbers written down. There's 3 in prayer so far, ladies and gentlemen, and 2 in presence, 3, 4, 5. We're moving on to persuasion 2, and thank you, and proclamation 2. Okay, so that's a bit more balanced. You've got 3, 5, 2, 2. Well, is there anything you'd like to say to all these nice people behind you? Yes, there is.
Well, we do have prayer groups on Mondays and Tuesdays, so I thought we should give that at least 3, so we did. And then we think we could improve our persuasion and proclamation, so we gave them 2. They were people quite good at presence.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, as you know, somebody from another church, would like time for 1 or 2 more? Yeah, let's see what you've got.
It's all not to scramble things.
Quite right. Now, those lads haven't reviewed it. You can do the same. What's your church?
St John's.
St John's where? Upperthorpe. St John's Upperthorpe, so I'm still learning my way around. So starting with prayer, there's 2 in prayer, 3, 4, 5.
Persuasion 1.
1 in persuasion. Are you beginning to see a pattern here?
Yeah.
Proclamation 3. Ah, it's different. And presence. Right. So that's a slightly different mix, isn't it?
Yeah.
So there's 5 in prayer and 3 in presence, and 3 in proclamation, but only 1 in persuasion. Now, just tell us a little story about that.
Okay. We put 5 in prayer because we do believe that we are very much a prayer-based church. As well as the early morning prayer breakfast, we know that people do pray a lot in their own homes, and obviously prayer features highly in our services. Presence, known in the community, engaging people's lives. I think St John is known in the community quite well. And we're involved with the Friday Night Project in Holme. and we do have other things going on in the church as well. So I think, that's about right.
Are you the church with composed grave?
Yes. We are, yes.
Yes. Yes.
We're not all like that.
We're not all like that, Okay, the proclamation. I think we are good at proclaiming that Jesus is Lord. We do use his name as much, if not more, than God. And recently we've had a series of sermons where people from the congregation have done the sermons, and Jesus was mentioned a lot in there, so that's why I put you in there. Persuasion. We only have one group, and we're probably not very good at getting groups going, although we'd like to be.
Right. Thank you. Okay, that's great. That's good. 5331. Not sure we have time for every church, but we have time for one or two more if anyone wants to try the egg challenge. Anybody else who fancies a go? Yes, thank you. Good. What church are you from?
At Thurstonland.
Thurstonland, right, okay. There's your 12 eggs. Off we go. Start with 2 in prayer, 4 in prayer, 5. One's gone into persuasion, 2 into proclamation so far. There's the last 2 going, 4 into presence. Right, okay. So you're 5, 4, 2, 1. There's a sort of pattern there, isn't there? So what would you like to tell us about that?
Well, we're not very good at persuading people. I know that. That's why I put 1 in. Proclamation. We're not good at talking about Jesus outside the church. Okay, inside the church, but not outside the church. But we have got quite a presence. We have got an opportunity to talk about Jesus outside the church, because we have quite a presence. Very small village. And we do have lots of contact with the school, with the other groups in the village. We have contact with the village associations in both villages. So we do have that presence there. And our young people do some really good children's days, fun days for them, Sunday fun days, out in Stockton Village Hall. And that just bring in families. I think the last one we did, we had about 50 children there. And their parents came along as well and gave a hand. So we do have the opportunity to do this proclamation and this persuasion, but we're not very good at it. And I do think we are a very prayerful church. We've got a prayer trip there, we've got a prayer box in the church. Our laity do the intercessions, organise the intercessions, and we do have many people in the church doing personal prayer at home. And I do think that almost half the church are very, very involved in prayer.
Right, thank you. Thank you. Five, 4, 2, 1. Try for one last church if there's somebody else who would like to go. A church we haven't heard from. Otherwise we'll leave it at that. Okay. Going. Gone. Now there were all slightly different, weren't they? But there was a general trend and pattern you saw fairly clearly. The most eggs in total went into the presence bowl, as I expected, a lot into the prayer bowl, and then a lot fewer into proclamation and persuasion, fewer into persuasion than proclamation. So you've worked out where your imbalances are. And then that's an interesting exercise, and then you need to work at that to redress the balance. You don't redress the balance by saying, well, prayer's strong, so we'll do less prayer, so we're more balanced. No, tempting, but no. Okay, so it's taking a look at the bowls where you've got fewer eggs and thinking, what do we do about that? Now we've worked that out, while keeping up the strengths that you already have. We do have about half an hour before, what about lunch, presumably, yes? We better not be late for that. So this is what I want to suggest to you, having got to this stage and we're beginning to interact. I think I'd like to ask you to go into church groups for the best part of half an hour before lunch. Just to check, is there anyone here who is the only person from your church? You don't know that, can you? There's at least one other person from at least two people from every church? Right, fine. Now, you'll need to find your own space and move some chairs around. Here, can people go on the stage? Can a group go in there? So you find a space. Probably most churches have got one warden here, so perhaps the warden could take a lead and say, St. John's are over here, or something like that, okay? Wait for it. Hang on. When you get there, you can talk about whatever you like.